All right, and we're live. So, welcome to the Deep Weeb podcast, where we have conversations about learning skills and developing yourself. I'm KanjiEater, and joining me again is Jordan.
What's going on, everyone?
And today is another special episode because we have our second guest ever, and that is Creative Kofi. So, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Thanks so much for having me here, guys. I got to give a shout out to both KanjiEater and Jordan because they've been very patient. So I want to lay that out first because I've had multiple opportunities to be on the show and things happen, but they've been patient with me. So thanks for joining and listening. Guys, I'm just a person who loves gaming a whole lot. I did come into studying Japanese many years ago, and it kind of was like I don't want to be dramatic, but it was like a renaissance because games I've always wanted to play finally became available to me. So I decided to kind of make Japanese immersion my life, and it worked out.
That's awesome.
And I love it. But I don't just, import games. I play all kinds of games, and I participate in weekly podcasts, kind of sharing information on games that will be coming to the US. So it's been a wild ride. I really just started sharing news on games last year. I've been doing this for 18 months.
Right. I did
So
think
the
that was something
podcasting is
newer
new.
that you had been doing, and it's kind of cool to see how that's evolved over your Twitter timeline.
Yeah, that's right. Because we've been friends on the Twitter timeline for a while. That's exactly right. A friend of mine who I went to college with was like, "You know enough about games to do a podcast," and he convinced me to finally do it. So shout out to him, and I'll have to tweet at him at some point.
Yeah. Very, very cool, man. So this is usually the part of the show where we transition to talk about like the deep goals that we're all working on. And 500 error occurred. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it looks like for some reason our chat box isn't going to be working tonight. Oh, well, that sucks. But anyways, if you are available on Twitch right now, this is usually the part of the show where we're going to talk about what sort of goals that we're targeting. So any sort of progress that you've been making, whether it's you finished some games that have been in your backlog to you going to school, finishing, your master's, PhD, bachelor's, heck, high school, like those sorts of things, like post in here what you've got going on. I should still be able to read out things that come in on Twitch, even if we can't display it on screen right now. But this while those pieces are coming in, while chat is coming in, we will be able to talk with Creative Kofi about like what is it that you're working on these days? What sort of goals do you have? It sounds like you're trying to build out some sort of podcast as well as a brand. So in the last 2 weeks, month or so, what sort of new things have you been grinding on, man?
It's a really good question. In the gaming space, the last game I finished, it's a long-standing RPG that has 10, or I should say 9 sequels. It's called Legend of Heroes: Trails of Cold Steel 4.
Yeah.
And the English version or the localized version comes out in 2 weeks. But I have been, after studying Japanese for a long time, finally caught up to where Japanese releases are. So that took me 200 hours of gameplay. God bless my family for dealing with me.
So 9 games?
Very rewarding experience. Yeah, so the original game came out in 2004 in Japan and was finally localized in 2011 in the States. Even though it took that long for the first game to come out, it took another 4 years for even the second game to be available in English. And it's really what inspired me to study Japanese in the first place.
Right. Which game was that? The first one in the
So
series?
that first game was Legend of Heroes: Trails in the Sky, first chapter.
So I haven't played that one, and because I've been following you for a while, like you have definitely put those games on my radar, and I'm like, okay, I want to play this. But when I looked into it, I was like, okay, the most recent version for at least the first game in this series, I think, which is the one that you said, it got localized to PC, and it has a better version than the Japanese one that's available. So you have to either choose, you play the better game in English, or you play the Japanese one, which doesn't have something that makes the game go faster, which is apparently in the English version. Does that sound about right?
That's exactly right. So I think the two best versions people talk about, as you said, is that PC version that's available on Steam. And then there's the Evolution version, which is locked to the PlayStation Vita. I personally prefer the Vita because it has Well, the Steam version has no voice acting, or very
Wow.
little in English, and the
Hmm.
Japanese Evo version has a lot of voice acting. So it's great because you're reading subtitles and listening.
Yeah.
And then they have updated character models. But you're right, it doesn't have the high speed playability. And then if achievements are a thing for you, that's the trade-off. You can get trophies from the Evo version
Have
as well.
have those games are those games on your radar at all, Jordan?
No, well, I think so. I have to see them, but they do sound familiar, to be honest. And I might have gotten one of them, maybe, but I've got like a
Nice.
huge backlog. But
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I kind of cut you off though, Kofi. Any other things that you've been chugging away at lately?
So if we're talking non what would you say, non gaming type
Sure.
stuff, I guess it would be more in language study. So one thing I will say is I'm working with a fan translation team for this same series, but for the newest version of the game. So the 10th game came out on August 27th, and fans know that the localization process will take probably 2 years.
Mm.
So Kitsune is I guess you could say, the person who has a site called zerofield.net.
Okay.
And he basically manages all of us. Like it's amazing. There's basically 5 of us translating, 5 of us editing, 5 people running Python scripts for an overlay so that you can play the Japanese game in remote play and then have the English properly over the bubbles of Japanese text.
What?
All of us are like
Whoa.
coordinated in this Discord, and then we share a spreadsheet on Google Sheets, and then it's like, okay, you do tab 3, and it's like 300 lines of text. It's the most well-oiled machine I have ever worked with. Like,
That's awesome.
it's hard.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jordan. What, Jordan? Did you want to?
No, I'm saying it's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, like I literally gloat about them to them in the text. I'm like, you guys are so great. Like I don't even get paid for this, but it's a labor of love, and it's been amazing. So yeah, shout out to the Zero Field team. They're all great. Oh, and then there's people who run the other pieces. The people who run a text capture tool where it's like, you run your HDMI port through a little HUD, and it'll grab all the text so that you can put it in a spreadsheet. So everybody's got like their role, and it's so good. It's so good. They've done it before. This is my first time working with them. So the good news is that we finished. We actually did a fan translation of the original game, but DLC with new story just came out. So I'm actually working on one of the additional chapters that was released on the
And
first.
one more time, which game is this? This is the first game, or this is the one that we're waiting on the translation for? Oh, sorry, yeah. Which one is this that you guys are working on?
This is the 10th game, and it's called Hajimari no Kiseki.
Okay.
We don't know what sometimes the localization will be not what the literal translation of the word is, especially because the kanji that they use for Hajimari is unique.
Yeah.
So we don't know if it'll be Trails of Beginnings or whatever, but it won't be out till 2021. I mean, if it's out in 2020, if it's out next year this time, I'd be shocked. I think it's going to take maybe a little bit longer.
So the idea with the fan translation is that fans will be able to experience this like immediately without having to wait the 2 years. Then is that right?
That's exactly right.
Okay, dang, and this is like typical fans. Like can't wait for the translation. Like I saw this a lot with the Tales games because I followed those translation patches quite a bit. And yeah, people are like, oh yeah, let's just start translating this thing now. And but eventually, that was kind of an interesting scene to watch because they actually finished the Tales of Graces patch for the Wii, but then the game came out, and as soon as the game came out, they were like, well, we don't want to interfere with sales, so they didn't ever actually release it. They got it done like right when the PS3 version got announced officially, and it was like, oh well, that's kind of interesting. So
that's what happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So with your group, like you guys will release this, and then like people will have like 2 options, or is it kind of like that where like as soon as the official thing gets released, you guys like stop distributing it, or how does that work with you guys?
So if you go to the Zero Field site, you're right. There are 2 options. We can just give you access to the entire spreadsheet, and you could just find the line item, it, will have enough
Right.
text to kind of guide you to where you need to
Mm-hmm.
go. Because the format of this game is there are three main characters, all in different locations with different conflicts. But outside of them, there are like, how would you say, like archived episodes of when characters met in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's like a dozen tabs on this spreadsheet, and you have to jump to like where you would understand two characters might meet.
Gotcha.
Obviously, this series having so many sequels, the character interactions are becoming very
So,
complex.
it's not nearly.
So
It's just not linear. So you have to. Is that where the tab jumping comes into this?
that's exactly right. You couldn't just go chapter one, chapter two. You could do the first, well, 5 chapters of the main story and you'd be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But then the episodes, these archived episodes, you would be so confused because
Mm-hmm.
they're unlocked at random in the game. You don't have any idea when you're going to see a particular episode.
The unlocking of the story is random and how it actually plays out.
So the main story is linear and that won't change. You have options on, like, let's say you're in chapter 2. You can play one of 3 different characters in chapter 2, but you're gonna have to play all of them. But you could choose the order that you do that. But outside of that, yeah, there are 30 individual episodes that could be completely random. It'll be
Interesting.
like character 1's history 2 years ago, and it'll answer questions that we didn't know about because this is, game 10.
Mm-hmm.
And you finally get some like fulfillment, but you don't know when you're going to see that episode. It could be the last episode you see, or the 7th one, or what have you.
So is this game series the best game series that like you're playing right now? Like, is this like if people are playing other games, do they need to stop what they're playing and focus on this one? Is it that good, or like where do you rank this series among, I don't know, like the other ones that you're into? Like I know we've talked about Tales stuff before on Twitter. Where does this one rank?
I want to give a shout out to Tales really quickly because they were also an influence for me for studying Japanese. Tales of Rebirth is one of my favorite Tales games, and I don't know what's going on with the localization of that one. It obviously has some overtones that delve into things like racism. I think that was really the heavy hitter. But so to answer your question though, Trails, I cannot sit here and I can't say this game series didn't change my life. I was so upset that the game wasn't localized. So, in 2011, I thought it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Heard the sequel was coming in 2012. It didn't happen. 2013, it didn't happen. 2014, it still didn't happen. But by 2013, I remember walking home from my job and saying, I'm just going to study kanji.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to study kanji and then start importing these games. And the reward I got, long story short, I think it was 3.5 years later, I finally imported. Well, there's more there, but I finally was ready to import and play the game 3 years later. And wow, like it was like a renaissance. It was just like I could finally go and get Tales of Vesperia. Because at this time, Tales of Vesperia was only the PS3 version was only available in Japanese.
Oh, I remember.
And Tales of Rebirth or playing Phantasy Star Online 2. Just all this. It just opened up. So technically, this developer, it changed my life. Another crazy story is I met a Japanese native on Twitter studying English, and we became such good friends that he flew to the States, and I took him around DC. And he was the one also who made me, because when I first started studying, I was like, all I need to do is read.
Yeah.
Because that's all I cared about. I'll never meet a Japanese person. But you guys know this, that's not the way to do it. You need to tackle all 4 categories, right? Reading, learning, listening, speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But meeting Hiro, he was the catalyst. Like, because he would say things and my listening wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be like, oh, shoot. Even though I might know a lot of meanings of different kanji, I needed to fill in these other spaces. So that was another big step. Sorry, I'm really rambling.
No. That's so it's interesting because exactly what you said. Like for me, it was the same thing. It was like, hey, I just want to read, some manga here. Next thing I know, I'm working as a software architect in Japan for a bit. It's like, well,
nice.
I might have to actually be able to speak Japanese here too. So it's like those sorts of things. It's like, you may have one goal in mind, but it's funny how life will, kind of take you in a different direction. Anyways, what I was going to ask you about on that is, okay, so So you're kind of jumping us into what influenced the beginning of your Japanese journey. Like, walk us through that. Like, so that was the start, right? Like,
That was the start.
what did you end up doing? Like, how did you get good at Japanese?
Great question. So, obviously, I want to first, spoil it so that people don't think I'm holding out. There are some YouTubers that influenced me into my journey, but I discovered them late.
Mhm.
So, I just want to throw it out there. Matt versus Japan, I found him year 4,
Mm.
which really helped me refocus on, quote unquote, getting good.
Mhm.
But before that, I kind of invented um, my own version of all Japanese all the time,
Mm.
or immersion. So basically, I went to my phone, I downloaded the katakana, hiragana memorization apps. I just did that straight for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
At the time, my commute to work was like an hour, like
Mhm.
2 hours on a metro system
Mm.
with no internet connection because it was underground. So all I had to do was repetition, right?
Mhm.
After outside of those 2 weeks, I purchased the James Hasig book,
Yeah.
Remembering the Kanji,
Okay.
and the app. I found an Android app. I'm I'm trying to think if it's still even on the App Store, but it matched the same. It introduced the characters one to one
Mhm.
instead of doing like I don't know N1 or N5. They organized the characters in their own way.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, I did character memorization for a year.
Oh, wow.
That's all I did because I felt like I was so I didn't have any outside influence. All I
Mhm.
thought was the biggest thing is the kanji. I'll just focus on the kanji for a year. So did the kanji for a year. Year 2, that brings me up to 2014. I decided to branch out and try to figure out what other tools are out there because I feel like even though a tool might be seen as bad, you could still leverage it for what you find is useful.
Mm.
So I
Mhm.
subscribed to Japanese Pot 101,
Mm.
and I
Okay.
liked that because it actually kept me within. It helped me feel like I was graduating from a certain skill or a certain practical use, like
Mhm.
introductions, understanding what native speakers might sound like. I wasn't doing enough of that at this point. Listening for me was weak because all I
Mhm.
was doing was reading for the most part. So for 2014 on, um, it was really SRS, doing character memorization, eventually going to vocabulary, combining different kanjis. After 2014, it was the road. So here was my thing. After going through 2 years and thinking my reading was really great, which it still wasn't,
Mhm.
I thought I could pass the N3.
Mm.
So that's all I did. I grabbed study cards, all that were N3 inspired, and then I met Hiro this year as well. And then all the way through December, I took the N3 for the first time here in I'm out near Georgetown.
Gotcha.
Um,
Did you get your results yet? How they looking?
yes, it's so 2015. I passed the N3. There's more. There's
Nice.
more sad stories after this though, because
Oh
I
boy.
went to the N2 after that. But yeah, so and that's the thing. My head got really big because I didn't take the N5, the N4. I just shot for the N3, and it happened to work out.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that brings us to December 2015. 2016, I started to go to what's it called? Meetups. I finally met up. Yeah, the app Meetup,
Mhm.
and there's a
Yeah.
local coffee
Yeah.
shop that's in the DC area near where I'm at. And every Wednesday, I just go meet with natives, meet with people who are trying to learn. The host had just passed the N2. So he was kind of like my inspiration. What is the term that Matt versus Japan uses?
Parent?
Like somebody that you want to sound like.
Parent.
Yes, that's exactly
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that's exactly right. And he was great for me for that. I ended up obviously I have things going on in life. So you said that you said you're an engineer and you work in Japan.
I did. I got a 6-month expat stay. So I
Oh, cool.
got back like in March after being over there for 6 months. Right as they were, shutting down the borders and everything as COVID started blowing up.
That's crazy. Okay, yeah. I wish I would have work like that. That sounds amazing.
Cool.
But I only say that because I do security engineering work
Mhm.
um, that is like situational awareness,
Mhm.
um, calculating technical debt for various developers.
Hmm.
So that also is kind of that is what would draw me away from language study, just because I have to learn some new technology or things like the cloud
Mhm.
service, cloud infrastructure, all the tools that go along with that. That took up a lot of time. So end of 2016, I take the N2. I don't do so hot.
Mm.
I mean, I'm trying to. I should pull out my card and see what the score was, but I think I was just so full of myself. There was a lot of like I felt like I studied so hard, so I should be cocky about it. And I'm glad I got humbled by not passing the N2. Because even now, right now it's 7 years since April, and now I people ask me, "Am I fluent?" All I say is, "I've enjoyed and studied the language for 7 years." I don't know if I'm comfortable enough to say I'm fluent.
Yeah.
I like that.
But maybe at some point,
So
you
it
know.
sounds like so far, like you got. So I'm at 6 years, and so far your story essentially matches mine, minus I only did 6 months of character memorization. So I'm guessing like at a year for you, like kanji just hasn't been a problem for you since then, probably, right? Like, how do you feel about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Like, I would say sometimes readings throw me off.
sure.
For example, playing import games, I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima,
Mm,
and they use the archaic Chinese readings sometimes for things
interesting.
like Sonchol.
Hmm.
It won't be Sonchol. It'll be like the 1200 reading. And so if they say it, I need to look. I need to look at what the like what did what did he just say? Oh,
Mm.
okay, it's the village leader, which I find really interesting. But you're absolutely right. As soon as I see a kanji, I usually get an emotional reaction
Mm.
because I've just memorized the meaning, at least.
Yeah. So okay, and then so where were we at in your story then? So you were at about so characters not really a problem. The N2, yeah, dude. I feel like this is an all too common story where it's like, oh yeah, I can probably
Yes.
pass into at this point. N3 was nothing, but it's like for some reason that reading, at least for me, it was that reading comprehension section. It's like, oh, I actually have to understand Japanese now. I can't just memorize a bunch of stuff out of a book.
Absolutely. So yeah, continuing on, 2017, 2018, things get a little bit more complicated in my life, as in, so well, I got married in 2014. God bless my wife. She has been a
Congratulations.
huge, thank you. Yeah, actually, our anniversary is coming up. But yeah, she's been a huge boost in my confidence. I think I went and failed the N2 twice. Yeah, so
Me
long
too.
story short, 2016 failed it, 2017 failed it,
Same.
and like after a, even though I'm failing, and you guys know this all too well, even though you're failing, you know you're getting
Yeah.
better.
Mhm.
And um 2018 was the last time I took the test, and I missed it by like 1 point,
Mm,
or it was something so close.
mm,
Same.
After,
Same.
same for you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I at once 2018 came to a close, I felt like I'll pass it eventually, but I'm now confident enough that I can go out in the world and just enjoy it. Because it was always like I would do, like, people have like no shave November. I would do no English November in preparation for the JLPT,
nice.
um, and it was awesome. But after a while, it just felt like, am I doing this just to pass a test? And I want it. But once you're 6 years in and you're really devoted, you can just go enjoy it, right? Just go
Yeah.
read
Yep.
something that's nuanced, and the kanji use will probably surprise you anyway.
That's exactly
So that's
where
kind
I'm
of
at with that. So is that still where you're at? It's like, well, I don't even really need the test at this point. I'm just gonna keep using Japanese because at this point I can use it for what I want.
that's exactly right. Yes, that's where I'm at. And to your point, for example, on the podcast I participate on, especially my Thursday podcast, a lot of fans love Japanese games, but know that I import them.
Mm.
So they're always going to hit me. Oh, like a game that just came out in the US, One-Chanbara, which has been hugely popular, from the PS2 era for a niche crowd. People were just messaging me, what do you think? Is it worth $60? All this and that. And so that's, I think, where I found my value. Instead of just going to textbooks and going to JLPT stuff, now I can read real articles about things, and I'm going to probably be introduced to words that are more valuable to me.
Yeah. The whole native, actually enjoying native content by natives, that like just if I could go back in time, that would be the one thing that I would just give myself a swift smacking and then send me directly to that, because at that point, that's when you start having fun with it, and it just becomes this loop that it becomes much more addicting than trying to force textbook stuff into your head.
Yes, absolutely. There's so many. You're right. Going through the N2 and some of the vocabulary that I feel like I've once again seen for the first time. I'm like, how is this possible? How is it I have not seen this word? But you're right.
So at this point, you're doing a couple podcasts. What are those podcasts? Like, what sort of content are you guys? Is it just one? Like, what's going on there?
So it's really 3 podcasts. I probably owe an apology to that third podcast because I've been so busy. But on Mondays, I participate in a podcast called Vitamin G.
Okay.
It is the crossroads for all 4 major gaming platforms. So we have a representative who's really been experienced in playing on like just PC or just Switch, and we all just debate it out. And it's really great because I'm sure you see there are people who prefer a console and they say the other console's crap. But when you're on a podcast where all 4 of you are at the table, you can't just dunk on and not expect to get some kickback. So we kind of keep ourselves in check, and that's really great. So I represent PlayStation, and the host is a very much Xbox kind of PC guy. But my 2 friends are also Switch and PC, and then we have a UK member who's very much into PC. He probably plays the most games out of all of us.
So why is PlayStation the best these days?
PlayStation is the best because they manage a very talented first party collection of studios. So they have, I need to not get this wrong. They have 15 studios, but really 5 or 6 of them make big blockbuster games. So if that's Naughty Dog making The Last of Us Part 2, or even like a studio that flies under the radar, Polyphony Digital making Gran Turismo 7 that's coming out. They're always committed to this level of quality that, like, they're going to be nominated for Game of the Year. Maybe they don't win it, but they're always contenders.
Right.
And I will say that they have a lot of story-driven experiences this gen, much more than PlayStation 3. So if you're playing Ghost of Tsushima, if you're playing Uncharted, if you're playing The Last Guardian, you're in for a story. And I think there's something super memorable about storytelling as opposed to maybe something that's multiplayer, which I'm not trying to take down, but just like in movies, we're really tied to an experience like that.
The only game that I've played like in English, I think in the last 2 years since I decided to go more of the like all immersion all the time sort of deal, like try to do less English so I can just focus on Japanese, was God of War on PS4. And I didn't have access to it in Japanese at the time, and I was like, dude, I gotta play this game. And no regrets. No regrets. That game was insanely good. So yes, PlayStation, it's they still got it, man.
Absolutely. No, so great to hear you say that. And God of War, amazing. Another one I'm forgetting that I'm gonna Horizon Zero Dawn.
That's
really
on my
blew
list.
me away.
Yeah.
Whatever language you end up playing that in, I think you'll just find. I just like it when a new game comes out, right? It's not a sequel. Like, I love my sequels. Not saying God of War isn't good, but every once in a while, it's refreshing to say this is brand new, but we're so committed it's going to be, beautiful and appropriate length and all this. So
I have that in Japanese, actually.
Really?
I haven't played it. It was on sale for like 1,000 yen, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just snag this. And I tried to grab God of War as well because I also have played it in English, and then I know like the voice actor who does like All Might is like them is Kratos,
didn't
and
know
I'm
that.
like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, I'll try it. But like, I found out that I think because there's so much blood in that game, you have to have a Japanese credit card. You can't buy it like with like
Yes.
outright. And I noticed, I was like, oh man, you've got to be kidding me. Like I wasted all the time. Like I wanted this and I can't even get it. So like, just I'm just throwing that out there. But oh,
I had
man.
never
Yeah,
heard
I
of
do
that.
want.
That you have to have a
Yeah.
Japanese credit card to get these mature games.
Yeah, because it's
That
so
is
violent. They're like,
absolutely
oh,
true.
you have to be old enough, and they don't, they won't allow just a little card.
That's funny because I misspoke. The other English game that I played was Dead Space, because after I was in Japan for 6 months, I was like, okay, Dead Space is illegal here. I have to go back to America and play Dead Space, because they couldn't.
Really?
Yeah, they couldn't get the game over there because there's apparently you're able to chop off humans' limbs and kill some people. That's fine, but severing limbs is apparently a no-no in Japan.
Okay.
That's so crazy. Resident Evil, a remake of Resident Evil 2 came out last year, and it was heavily censored in the Japanese version.
Really?
In the English version, there's like this face that falls apart because it's smashed by a garage door, and it's like completely held together in the Japanese version. And I'm like, that is crazy that Capcom was held back on that, right?
Yeah.
They're in Japan.
Yeah, they're the ones making that game, right?
Yeah, that's wild.
So okay, so that's the first podcast. What's what's the other ones?
So Thursday is a pretty big podcast. I'm going to give a what do they call it? A quick shout out to the Saltiest Gaming podcast, because we passed 10,000 subscribers.
Wow.
Nice.
Maybe 2 weeks ago.
That's awesome.
It was September. That is a more PlayStation centric podcast, but I like it a lot because we have enough influence for important people to stop by. We are potentially working on a developer who made a big franchise for PlayStation coming on. I don't know if it's confirmed, so I don't want to I don't want to say. But if he does come on there, I will be tweeting that all over our timeline. I'm really hoping that happens. But other big tech influencers like what is it? Red's Gaming Tech. He does a lot of talk about AMD GPUs, CPUs. Obviously like the 3090, 8070. So he kind of has us in his back pocket. That's and then typically we're also talking a little bit about the drama. What is the rival console doing? Being PlayStation centric, right? We're always going to be also focused on Xbox as somewhat of a competitor. So that's the Macer channel on Thursday, and then Saturdays I should be more often participating in the Smash podcast, which is general, just like this, like anime, entertainment as a whole. What's Disney doing? Movies in general, but COVID's really hurt it. Weekends are just difficult for me at this point. But shout out to Bloody Knuckles. He is the host of that, and one of the first people that ever wanted me on a podcast as well. So
interesting. Yeah. Wow. I had no idea. No wonder you're so busy, dude. Jeez. Save some podcasts for the rest of us.
I know it's a lot. And then I guessed on a couple of other ones, Brap on Wednesdays and Crossfire on Friday. Crossfire is big. They get 5,000 views.
Oh wow!
A night. So, but I'm just guessing on those.
Very cool. So, all right. So we're talking about a lot of games. You spend a lot of time learning Japanese. What's your ratio balance here of games you're playing in Japanese versus English these days?
I would say 70-30. Actually, maybe like 80-20. So going through this year, I'll say this: all the games are in Japanese except for The Last of Us Part 2.
Okay.
That was it. Yeah, just the name of the games I played. I played Ys Oath and Felghana, which is just an old school Falcom action RPG.
Okay,
which is amazing.
I don't think I've played any
Persona
Falcom
5
games.
Boil.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh man, I'll send you a list of recommendations.
Sorry, what's like?
Same. Me too.
What's a go-to Falcom game? Like that's Trails, right?
So you're right. That's Trails. Their oldest series is Ys. Started in '87, and it's basically a red-haired main character that's out on an adventure and meets a new cast of people with a couple of rotating characters.
How do you
If
say
I'm
that
gonna
one? It's
recommend,
YS, right? East?
right?
Oh,
East.
yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
I know
okay.
what you're talking
I've heard
about.
of them. Yeah.
And if I were to say, like, if you're just on the store, you got some extra cash, East 8 is a great jump in. Great
Okay.
jump. It's available everywhere: Switch, PC, PS4, Vita. So you got your options there.
Gotcha. Cool.
But yeah, so I played East. What else did I play? Oh, Persona 5 Royal. You know I imported that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got
Same.
Death Stranding, but I imported that. Yeah, I think it was just The Last of Us Part 2 that I played in English. One-chan Bara, Japanese. This month is the HD remaster of Shin Megami Tensei.
Dude, I'm ready.
Yes.
I've never played
I'm
it.
ready.
You said you read it.
No, I am ready. I am ready.
Oh, you're ready.
Dude, that game, like, I was seriously, like, I don't remember when they announced it, but like that weekend before that, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna start this game. It's been sitting on my shelf for like 6 years, like before I was even learning Japanese. It's like, I'll post a picture on Twitter later, but I have like an 8-frame mural of all the demons from that game hanging on my wall.
Wow.
I have like a body pillow of like this little dog demon from it. It's like, I've been ready to play that game, and I felt like a poser having these things for the longest time. But I was like, no, I can't do it. You know, Atlas, they always make HD versions or like upgraded versions. So it's like, it's just a matter of time, right? And then the Atlas gods, they came back to me, man, and they were like, yes, your waiting has been rewarded. October, 26th? Like, we got like 10 days or something? Yes, my body is ready.
And it's so funny. I feel like I'm on the outside here because I've never played the Shin Megami Tensei games. I know the Persona series,
Okay.
but this is totally blind for me. One of my friends who has played, all he says is, "This game is brutal, Kofi.
Yeah,
This game is brutal." I think he was saying like there's a lot of auto death enemies.
scared.
So sometimes you're lucky, like you maybe survived because the death missed you.
Yeah.
I played Digital Devil Summoner. Or wait, was it
Digital Devil Saga?
Digital Devil Saga. Okay. Yes.
For the DS?
No. This is the first one of a 2-part series that was originally on PS2. It came out right after Nocturne, I believe.
Oh,
because
no. Yeah. I remember
that.
The demigod. So the protagonist from Nocturne is actually like a final boss in that game as like an extra, and it is in, like, you just pull that up on YouTube sometime. It's just like permadeath, like invincible boss. It's like a 10-hour battle. So here's what I'm kind of struggling with, because I've heard that too, that this one is brutal, and I'm coming to the point with games where it's like, I don't enjoy clicking the buttons and menus as much as I used to, because I'm getting spoiled with games like, Horizon Zero Dawn and that sort of thing. So how are you feeling about these old school RPGs like Nocturne, where it's just like, it feels like a grind? Like, how do you keep that fresh?
That's a great question. So, Trails is like this. Trails has lots of menus that you choose skills from. That's as traditional as it gets. I think for that series, the story is just so incredible, and it's compared. So you've probably seen this meme before. Most JRPGs start with saving somebody's cat and then fighting God at the end.
Yeah.
Wow.
Accurate.
And I was like, wow, Trails is in that vein. I'm not going to say they don't do that. There are so much grounded. So, for example, a chaotic event might happen, but it'll be contained to one country. And then you'll find that the results or the aftermath of a country's economy becoming worse will affect a new role of characters that never met the original ones. And I'm basically describing the first 5 games. You have this where you go 5 games in, and there are 2 sets of main characters, and they're both so inspired and grounded and dealing with the conflicts in their own town. And the fact that there's a technological revolution, basically like things like using magics in an enhanced manner was invented 10 years prior. So every time you play a new game, they'll be like, oh, this was invented. You're like, oh, okay, so now I can blink fire and boost my attack because I have fire equipped in a certain way, almost like materia from 7. That's so cool. And then you'll see people take advantage of technology things. I don't want to say too much because I'll spoil it, but people can augment the technology and then take advantage of it for terroristic purposes. And all that to say, going through menus is okay because I want to know the next thing that happens when I beat this boss.
Right.
And the cast of characters in that series. But at the same time, a game I loved that didn't have many menus was Final Fantasy VII Remake this year.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Amazing.
If you're a fan of 7, to me, this was a love letter. And it does make me question, do I really want to be playing, 200-hour game menu stuff? Or do I want to play these contrite experiences like 7 was at 40 hours? You're right. I struggle with it. I definitely struggle with it.
I'm glad I'm not alone, because it's like, hey, I've spent a lot of time learning Japanese so I can play those menu games, man. Like, we got to justify this.
Right, exactly.
I'm gonna have to try Trails. I think story for me is a huge, like, I love a game with a good story. Like, so, and I think I do. So I did get the first one. I haven't played it, but I did buy it because it was just, I saw it on sale and I was like, oh, let me get it, and then I'll come back to it eventually. So you're hyping it up for me for sure.
Yes. So like there's this thing now where I've gotten a couple of big influencers to try the game, and then they'll tweet it out, and then I'm just like, yeah, I'm so proud of you. So I'm excited for what you think. And so do you know if you bought Cold Steel or if you bought Trails in the Sky?
I did buy. I bought the Cold Steel.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that's a great point to jump off at.
Okay.
And then if there's more, you can go back. But
do you recommend, like, in general, like, if you're gonna start at which game, the first one in the series, or?
I, in my deepest core, want you to start with Trails in the Sky. That was from 2004.
Okay.
But asking somebody to play 10 games in a row because I said so isn't working. Like the Trails collective community is upset with people who want things like I just said. They're like, stop saying that. There's too many games. Just let them jump in. The graphics are up to date on Cold Steel. And I respect that. At the same time, there are these moments, for example, so Cold Steel 1 came out is fine. Cold Steel 3 came out in 2017 in the 2019 in the US. There is a moment in that game that if you have played the original trilogy, you are grabbing your seat. Your fingers are going through the seat because it is so gripping. Because it is paying respects to something that happened years ago.
Okay.
If you don't play that, you won't know what the heck is going on. You're like, why are they doing this? That's how polarizing it is.
Yeah.
So it's so hard for me to separate emotion from it.
I mean, it sounds like an absolutely. I mean, yeah, you said 10 games and they're all connected. It's not like Final Fantasy where like you really can just jump in it anywhere. Versus like Trails, it feels like you may be able to, but you'll probably be missing something.
Yes.
Is it on PS4?
So that's where it gets complicated. The original one, Trails in the Sky, Legendary Trails in the Sky, first chapter, second chapter, and third chapter all are not on PS4. You'll have to get them on Steam. It gets more complicated because there is a duology, game 4 and 5 that are only officially available in Japanese. But you can, I keep forgetting, I'm talking to people who are fluent in Japanese. So you can just import those because they came out on PS4 this year. And they're basically the Kai version. So to be honest, if you prefer PS4 and you don't have a PC to play on, you could start with Trails from 0 and then figure out where you want to go. I mean, I don't know. It depends because obviously you have the language access, so you could play where you find convenient.
Okay. Yeah, I want to start right at the beginning. To be honest,
awesome.
I want to be in for the long haul.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, great. So I would say this: if you have a Vita, if you love the Vita, I would recommend getting the Evolution series.
Okay.
But if you're okay with Steam, the Steam version is great too.
Okay. So it's Trails in the Sky. That's where I would start.
Absolutely. Trails in the
Okay.
So it goes Trails in the Sky, first chapter, second chapter, and then it's called the third, which is really like a how would you say? It's like all the characters came back for a final reunion, but it's unique in its own way, which I really can't say.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right, I'm on it.
I think we were also talking about games that are coming out this year here. So Nocturne's one that I think all of us are looking forward to. What else is on your radar, man?
Yes, there are 2 other games that
I think, yeah, you like just tweeted this out too. Actually, I was planning on asking you this,
yes.
So good timing.
So one of them, yeah, exactly, perfect timing. One of them I've not. It wasn't on my radar until I recently looked at gameplay. Sakuna.
I saw that one. That's like a childish girl-ish looking character. That one.
Yes.
Right? And it's what is it? Platformer.
It's like a platformer side scroller, but it has like very strong looking action elements.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what I would compare it to. Tri-Ace released a game that reminds me of it. Tri-Ace released a game called Exist Archive. I think
I've heard of that one. I haven't seen gameplay of it though.
Yeah.
Did it look
Exist Archive kind of plays like Valkyrie Profile, because same dev. No, wait, not same. Isn't Tri-Ace? Didn't Tri-Ace make a Valkyrie Profile? No, it was Square Enix.
Yeah, I know Square Enix.
Yeah,
that one.
Yeah, Square Enix.
So is it similar to? I haven't looked at this game in a while. Similar to Muramasa, like the one by Vanillaware.
Good. Yes, good. That's a great comparison. I would just say the 2D. How would you say? The 2D, not manga, but the 2D visual novel style is not what they went. It's more of a 3D or 2D.
Oh, gotcha.
Visual.
Gotcha. Okay, right.
But that's a great example. Yeah.
So okay, so what was that one called again? Sakuna.
So that's Sakuna of Rice and Rain.
Right.
Rice and Ruin.
Rice and Ruin.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
And then the last one, right? Because I think that's it. Yeah, the last one is Atelier Ryza 2: Lost Legends and the Secret Fairy. That comes out in December. But then in January it comes out in the US.
I haven't played any of the games in that series either. Those are essentially RPGs where the main character is some very cutesy girl, right?
Yes. It's so funny you say this. I have actually played very little of these as well.
Yeah.
I've played Atelier Aisha, which was the first one that didn't give you a time limit. I think I didn't like the idea that you're in this and they're like, all right, you got 5 days, the whole game fails.
Interesting.
For me, I was just like, and maybe it's easy. It just wasn't my thing. But Atelier Aisha was the first one. That came out 2009? So that game is 10 years old.
Yeah.
Ryza, I bought the original Ryza. I still haven't finished it. So my goal is to hopefully finish Ryza so I can play Ryza 2 and round all this off. I really want to finish some more of these RPGs. So here's the dilemma you were talking about with going through menus. All these years of playing Trails, I have missed huge games that came out on PlayStation that I used to care a lot about. I didn't play Uncharted 4 for a year because typically I was just studying.
Yeah.
I would just be like, studying this.
That's where I'm at right now. It's like I have to schedule time to play games for some reason. Otherwise, I won't, is what I found. And I have it's actually linked on my Twitch, like my backlog of games. And like I said, I just played through Dead Space, man. I'm in 2012.
Yeah, it's sometimes painful because I go to these podcasts and they're like, "Oh, what'd you think of this game and this game?" I'm like, "Oh shoot, I'm coming out of this like shell," and now in the Twitter gaming space, if you didn't beat a game within 2 weeks, you ain't playing real game. Yeah, you're irrelevant. So when Uncharted, it was so funny. Last of Us Part 2 came out, and we have to review it on the podcast within 2 weeks to stay relevant. But I went on vacation for 6 days, and so I didn't have my PlayStation. And I get home, and I'm like, all right, I gotta play. I'm playing it like odd hours in the morning. My wife is pissed at me, rightfully so. And then what ends up happening? We don't even review it on the podcast because bigger news was out. Even bigger news was that I think it was the Xbox, whatever backwards compatibility was announced or something. So all that at breakneck speed, but it's brutal.
That's one of the things
Absolutely
about
brutal.
like just game journalism that it certainly hasn't ever appealed to me for that reason. It's like, you know, you want to enjoy the game, and if you have to just brutally rush through it, it seems like I don't know. Devolver Digital, have you watched their press conferences?
No, but they're like the really creative
They
indie
are a
stuff.
work of art. Okay, Devolver Digital press conferences, check those out, because they play it out like a movie, and it is so meta, because it touches on this, that people at some point they stop caring about the actual games, and it's just about the gaming news almost. And that's what I found in myself. It's just like, oh, what's the new nugget? Like, I'm spending all my time researching new games. When was the last time I actually turned on my PlayStation 4? Like, geez.
Ooh,
It's like, yeah. So Devolver Digital, check out their. So first off, they make awesome games. I just played through Carry On. That was the Castlevania style one where you're actually like the monster and you just go around eating people. Very entertaining.
Yeah.
But yeah, their press conferences are also very entertaining for those. They call us gamers out for what we are. So check that out.
That's hilarious. Yeah, it makes me think of because they made My Friend Pedro, right? That's Devolver Digital.
Yep, I haven't played that one.
I haven't played that one, but I see it and everybody's like, "Oh, it's so amazing." So yeah, much respect to them for yes, calling us out on being so news hungry. Because, you know, like for example, all these new games are coming out on PlayStation 5, and I'm very excited for them, especially Demon's Souls, which is like still my favorite in that genre. But at the same time, I'm gonna be popping in PS4 games.
Yeah.
Right? I'm gonna be popping in Shin Megami Tensei
Yeah.
in my PS5.
So PS5 is the day one buy for you then?
It is. I got the pre-order. It was
Okay.
brutal. I
Yeah.
ended up going with a third-party retailer that when I hit confirm purchase, it hung for 20 minutes. And the only reason I let it, because here's the thing, when it hangs that long, you think it's lost. The only reason I hung it is because I was pissed that PlayStation let the retail date leak. And they just let GameStop and Best Buy sell a day early online.
Wow.
So you couldn't physically go to the stores. This was not like 2013 anymore. So I was just like, I was fed up. But there was a link. They're like, hey, this went on sale. And I was like, whatever. So I click it. And yeah, it hung for 20 minutes. And then it was like confirmed.
So what is it about PlayStation 5? Like, what do you find most compelling about it?
The technology inside. I'm sure you guys are both in the tech space.
Yeah.
The technology inside is remarkable, in my opinion, for two reasons. Mark Cerny, who is the architect behind the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5, I forget where he originally worked, but basically he's been designing PlayStation stuff for like 15 years. Attacked the weakest component of what you need in a gaming system, and that was the hard drive. Obviously, spinning disk drives are the standard up until now, but the SSD is now standard in both the Series X. I'm not, trying to knock Microsoft, but is standard in the PlayStation 5. But not only is it standard so that you can start to approach unique game design, there is a unique bus that is on the SSD that allows for a gigabit rate that is competitive with anything that's on the market that's like available for other people to purchase. But there are certain components within that bus that if you're making a PlayStation 5 only game, you could take advantage of loading in assets that we've just not experienced before. One of the first leaked examples of this tech was showing the Spider-Man game, and that they could take like a viewpoint of the city and zoom across it, and you didn't see any load or pop in. There was no freezing. And then they ran it back to back with the PlayStation 4 version, where it would pause maybe after traveling a couple blocks, have to load, like it would just completely freeze. But yeah, the PlayStation 5 version, you could basically sail from the outskirts of town all the way in to the center, and it was just one seamless run. So seeing how game design could change. Let me give you a great example. We've seen very few superhero games. In my opinion, the reason we haven't seen a Flash game or a Green Lantern game is, who would want to play Flash and not run around the world, or play Green Lantern and fly out to the atmosphere? You go, what, you're going to stick them in a city and they can't do much? That's so limited. Or one of my favorites, what if we had a Doctor Strange game where he could set up these rings and then step into another dimension within moments. Having an SSD or having this type of inspiration, or maybe it'll evolve into something in the future, is where I think we can have a better representation of what superheroes could do, or games in general.
I think I get your Doctor Strange example based on that Ratchet and Clank demo that they had for PlayStation 5. Because that one, it was like, okay, I can see why you guys need your gigabits and whatever to to get this thing to run like that, because it was insane. It was exactly that, jumping between dimensions, all different assets in a different world, and just one after the other after the other. It's pretty impressive, honestly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, I obviously, like, Ratchet and Clank is the best example that we've seen. Really good load times is pretty standard. Obviously, like, let's not front. PC's got some great stuff. I've got a Gen 3 SSD in mine. But I'm looking for, like the Ratchet and Clank, I'm looking for how design can change. There's just things that we haven't thought of, but we can't describe because we're just the consumer, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I would say stick with Ratchet and Clank. What would you call it? What is it called when you have persistent worlds? I'd love to see, something that is destroyed in an open world game that can kind of remain that way forever. I think Witcher's done that fairly well. I know Cyberpunk 2077 is coming out. That might do it well in some way, shape, or form. But these new consoles, I think we could finally see something new.
So do you also do, like, I think you mentioned you do PC gaming as well, right?
I do. Yeah, I finally built a custom PC I could be proud of a couple years ago. It was right before the 2020 series cards came out, so it's got like all the bells and whistles.
Gotcha, nice. I'm
1080.
I think mine is still from 2014 and has like a 770 in it, which now it's finally reached the point where I can't play new games like Control on it because it's like, yeah, that's below the minimum. I'm like, what the heck? How is that possible? But yeah, I mean, I guess that's what happens. 6 years is about how long it takes. So you should be good for a couple years, dude.
Yeah, I should be okay. I feel everybody makes fun of me now because they say I don't have ray tracing.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
but it is what it is.
Yeah.
I want to build one. That's on the agenda, is to build one. To be honest, I feel like I can get a lot of games that, like, I typically wouldn't have access to. So it's slowly but surely, one of these days. Hopefully, I'm hoping this year or next year build one.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. The new 30 series cards will hopefully have some sort of bundle sale within the next 12 months, and third party will be creating more options for those cards, because I'm crazy and I have RGB in my PC build, so I'd love to have like a custom third-party version of a card to color coordinate and all this.
I mean, you can't have it run fast if you don't have the RGB, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Light equals speed. So, all right. So let's jump into our next section here, where we kind of talk about so first off, if anybody is still around in chat, go ahead and post any sort of questions that you guys might have, or any content recommendations. And that's, I guess, what I would ask you, Creative Kofi. What sort of games would you recommend people play? I know we've already touched on a couple. All right, so the Trails series, right?
Yes.
What are some other go-to game series that maybe people haven't experienced that they should give a chance to?
You mentioned Muramasa Demon Blade. Yeah. I'm going to go on that coattail with the Vanillaware developer and say 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim.
It just came out.
Have you finished that one?
Out. Yes. So I got I imported it and got the platinum way back in March, and loved it. Loved it. I think here's the thing. When I first saw the trailer for that game, I was like, okay, this is Vanillaware. I'm hyped. And I saw the gameplay and I was turned off.
Yeah.
I
just watched a gameplay video of it, and exactly the same experience. It was like, okay, this seems whack, but it's Vanillaware. Like, so
yes.
It was good, I guess. Like,
it was incredible. Like, they have this way of presenting the characters to you that makes you go, oh, well, there's some sort of connection here that I didn't think about. Wait, and then you go, wait, what? This is related to that because of this? Because you have 13 main characters.
Yeah, 13.
And because I will say this, because there are time periods involved, things get very complicated. Very quickly. And this is another game I'm very proud of. Our game I'm proud of talking about because I've influenced a couple of people that would never even like. I had his name is Optimus Code, former game dev, pretty big influencer on Twitter. Okay, he's got like I think 9,000 followers. He played Odin Sphere as his first Vanillaware game, and he started that 2 weeks ago, and he's been tweeting about how amazing it is.
I gotta give into that one. I actually haven't played through any of them, and yeah, Odin Sphere is like at the top of that list for me, especially with the remake.
Oh my gosh! So you picked a great point to jump in. Odin Sphere is the best. I mean, the PS4 version is amazing because you can play the original version. The upgraded version runs at 60 frames per second. It's got a different storyline, different characters. So you're gonna be.
I didn't know it had all that. Have you revisited? There was one that never got localized, which was Princess Crown. Have you dabbled with that one?
So that's so crazy that you just brought that up. So here's the crazy thing. If you spent the outrageous amount of money on the physical version of 13 Sentinels, it came with Princess Crown.
Wow. Okay.
And I found it on eBay, and the person didn't use the code. I don't know why. He sold it to me for $20 less because the thing retails for $90 when it came out, which is outrageous. But yeah, so I got it on eBay. That was the thing I was looking at. I'm like, $90 for 13 Sentinels. Like I want it, but ugh. But yeah, I think it was like 67, 68 he was selling it for. I was like, fine. And it came with the code, came with the extra box, came with the art book, came with the digital soundtrack. And it came with Princess Crown. So I was playing Princess Crown for the first time, and it actually plays pretty good.
It's an old game.
This game,
it's a pretty old game.
Yeah, 97.
Oh, jeez, I didn't know it was that old. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's late 90s, but it's so funny you just brought that up. Because to my knowledge, there's no other way to play that game on PlayStation. It doesn't even have trophies. Yeah, I don't know of any game that comes out that doesn't have trophies.
I think it was originally PlayStation, if I'm not mistaken, and then it was. Oh no, was it like? It might have been something even before that, because it might have been like Saturn. No, not Saturn. I don't remember, but
you might be right.
Was it?
You might be right. I think it was Sega Saturn.
And then they did come out with a re-release of it on PSP, and so it's been on my radar just because everything Vanillaware is on my radar. But yeah, I'm ashamed to say like still haven't actually played through any. So I think that's probably what I'm gonna have to dive into here pretty soon now that we've been talking about this again.
Yeah, that's. If you go with Vanillaware and you go with Trails, that's plenty of your time already.
Right? Yeah. Well, there goes my life. Yeah. 6 years to Japanese, 6 years to these games, probably. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Right.
Okay, so what else? What are some other game series that you would recommend to people?
So let's see.
Actually, real quick, while you're thinking of that, let's go around the circle. Okay, so Jordan. What do you got for people? What sort of thing?
I would say Tales, of course. That's where it started for me. Tales of Innocence for the DS never got released. I know, never got released for the American release, and I was like, oh man. So definitely Tales.
I
did play through that game in English.
What really?
You said which Tales?
Tales of Innocence.
Tales of Innocence?
Oh, I'm playing Innocence R on Vita right now.
It had a translation patch by Absolute Zero. This is probably like 10 years ago that this came out.
Okay.
And so that Absolute Zero is the guy who did 3 Tales of translations, and he was one of the guys that inspired me to like get into Japanese, because he was just like, you're not going to play these games like exactly like you were saying. That game never got released even still. Yeah. And so he did Tales of Fantasia on PSX. He did Tales of Innocence next. And then as an April Fool's joke, he would always do something on April Fools. And usually people don't release entire translation patches on April Fools. He released the worst Tales game to date, which is Tales of the Tempest, which was a mothership title that then they said, yeah, this game is so bad, it's no longer part of the main series. This is a spin-off game now. So he translated all of those, and I played through all of those. But yes, Tales all the way.
Yeah, I remember watching the trailer for that game on, I don't know, like game trailers. I don't know if either of you have heard of or remember that growing up. Like, oh man, but like Tales for sure. Kingdom Hearts. We won't talk about Kingdom Hearts 3 right now. I'm kind of a little hurt,
So,
but
okay, so let me be a little confrontational on this one. Why is Kingdom Hearts good? Because I tried getting into the PS2 one originally back in the day, and it's just like
I agree.
I don't like the battle system. It's not as good as Tales. I like the Final Fantasy characters, but honestly, like the Disney characters, I'm like, I don't really need Goofy and Sora to be friends. Like I don't need this crossover. And every one there's still more Disney, there's still more Final Fantasy in each one, and it's like, and then you add the plot, if you can call it that, and it's just bounces all over the place. Nobody knows what day it is anymore. I don't understand why people like that game.
I don't, to be honest, I think it was just like, so when it first came out, I remember seeing it and I'm like, whoa, I know all these characters in the Final Fantasy games. And like that's what kind of like sucked me in. And so, yes, I know the story is very, crazy, but I don't know. It still has a special place in my heart. Now, I'm not a big fan of 3. It's kind of like Final Fantasy 15, where it's like I tried to love it. I tried to give it my time and everything, and it's just not cutting it. But
so, did you say, Kofi, that you played through 15 too, and it was kind of? Did you like 15?
I couldn't even finish 15. I just didn't like it.
I've been waiting to play 15 since I was a junior in high school. I am now a 28-year-old man, and I am still looking forward to playing that game. But then I got both of you on here telling me that the last 11 years of my life waiting for that game have not been worth it.
I tried. I watched the anime. I watched the Kingsglaive movie, which was actually pretty good. But
it was pretty good. I'll give it.
I tried so hard to love this game as it intended, and it just like it's like Square just spat in my face, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, sure.
It's because of people like you that they're not going to make the DLC now, Jordan.
To be honest, I saw the DLC for Arden, and that was amazing. Like the main villain, like I loved it, and I was like, "Oh wow, this should have been in the original game, like we planned." Like, but they ran out of money, and I'm like, "Well, when you make a not good game, I would have rather, like 100%, I would have rather them waited. I would have rather them just waited until they were ready to release everything and release everything like a full bundle like they should have. It was just features that should have been in the game originally. They were put in as DLC and you had to pay for them. And so it was just like, wait, I bought the collector's edition, $120, did all this stuff, and you're telling me I have to spend more money to get the actual story, to get the complete version? Like
that's pretty steep, dude. $120 for a not complete version.
Again, like spat in my face, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Like this is how it is now."
Reminds me of the Mirror's Edge special edition that came out, and it didn't even include the game. Like people bought like the most expensive special edition, and it's just like, "Oh yeah, no, the game's separate. You get some figurine and some art books, but that's separate." Yeah. Oof. So, anyways, Final Fantasy 15. That's a skip for both of you guys.
100%.
100%. Remake 7 Remake is hot.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Remake is amazing.
Love me some 7 Remake.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
my favorite character in Final Fantasy series.
Yeah.
Zack.
Wait, you say who's your favorite character in the Final Fantasy series?
Zack.
Oh, it's Zack. Okay,
absolutely.
So
favorite.
So wait, did you like Crisis Core?
Oh, loved it.
Loved it.
Okay,
love's a strong word.
I didn't love it,
Same.
man. I don't know.
Played through it.
And that's what I actually complete. I think for me, the combat didn't have enough.
True.
But the story of 7 is amazing. By the way, Vincent Valentine is my favorite all time.
Oh, nice. Yes.
So did you like Dirge of the Cerberus? That was that one, right? His spinoff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dirge of Cerberus is good. It's not amazing, but playing as Vincent, yeah, you're right. Character. That's super empowering. Yeah.
So okay, what we keep coming back to is Final Fantasy games. Like the battle system, it's not as good as Tales. Like Tales, you have like a full fighting game battle system in there, and then with Final Fantasy, it's like it feels like they're kind of starting to evolve there. They're adopting correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't played these new ones. Like I said, I've been waiting for play 15 for forever, and they're adopting the Kingdom Hearts style battle system. I kind of feel like,
yeah.
But is it there? Is Final Fantasy VII as fun as something like a Tales games battle system yet?
Oh, yeah. I would. Go ahead. I'm gonna let Kofi go first.
Wait, I was going to say absolutely. I think there's just enough skill-based requirements when you play that it feels very rewarding.
Yeah.
So, like for example, another game I do not like from the Final Fantasy series is 13.
Yes.
And that's the game I actually finished. I cannot stand it. But I'll get back to that in a second. The reason why I think Remake works so well for me is not only can you dodge, counter, your attacks can just miss based on your physical location, and that's new. Well, maybe Kingdom Hearts did this. I can't speak for Kingdom Hearts. I don't know it well enough. But like, I remember getting Braver off, and I would just miss because I would just be just outside of range for where I can hit. So now there's all these different things I need to think about, right? Getting up enough. I guess doing enough hits so that I have actions that I can take. Because that's another thing. You can't just run and dodge. You'll have no like ATB filled to even make an action.
Yeah.
So when you're considering all those things, you're doing a lot of work, to kind of meet, I don't know, the boss that might be beating you down. So I love that.
Yeah, no, I would have to agree. I think with 7, it was amazing. Very fluid. It took a little bit for me to get used to it, but once I did, once you figured out that it's great. And then sticking in the Final Fantasy route with 15, my main the gameplay was okay. My main problem with it was it felt very easy. Like even like I remember the final boss, it was like, oh, hold circle and like dodge everything. And so it was very like it had potential. It could have been there. And in the original, you couldn't control any of the characters. It wasn't until the DLC was released then you got to control the other 3 characters that are in your party. But like now starting with the remake, I do believe that the battle system can compare to Tales.
So going around the circle, my game suggestion. So this is another game that, like I said, these games have been on my list for years, and I'm just now finally coming back from Japan these last 6 months, finally knocking some off my list. So this one is Botanicula, which is a point-and-click adventure game where you essentially, so it's like a very indie-ish game. You essentially play as what can only be described as a group of vegetables, and you explore some trees. So it's you basically have to see the visuals to really understand this, but it's very quirky. It's trying to solve puzzles, going around, clicking a bunch of stuff on your screen until it does things in the right order, and solving puzzles, that sort of thing. You have this small party of these I still call them vegetables, but there's like just little plant creatures everywhere, and just exploring this world that is just handcrafted, and all these custom sound effects that you can tell is really just some human voices doing weird things. Incredibly charming, super short, 5 hours. It was a blast. Yeah. And
I've never heard
it's by
of
the
that.
same people.
Yeah, I'm just looking it up.
I forget the game studio's name. But it's by the same people that did like Machinarium is one that it's called, which is
the Russian developer.
Yeah, I think.
Machinarium is one of my favorites, man. I didn't know they made another game.
Yeah, they've got a couple out. Because I was playing through this one, I started looking through their other ones, and I never finished Machinarium, however you say that. But that one's awesome because I did play a couple hours into it. And then they have a couple other like point and click ones like this. But I found Botanicula's world to be extremely unique. And yeah, definitely recommend that one.
Amani?
Yes.
Amanti Design?
Yes, that one. Starts with an A. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the dev's name, right?
I think
yes.
It's the company too, and they've got a couple people that I think that are working on that. I was surprised that there was more than one person in the credit, honestly, because yep. All right, so back to you, Kofi. What's another game series that you'd recommend to people, or games in general?
So I'm gonna go with one that is a little bit unique, especially for somebody like me. I think this is why I want to bring it up, because I have a bias against a lot of Western RPGs. I don't gravitate towards a lot of them.
Mhm.
Witcher 3 is great.
Mm.
I'm not going to hate on Witcher 3, but things like Fallout,
Yeah.
things like Elder Scrolls, they've just never resonated with me.
Same.
Even Mass Effect. Mass Effect 2
Yeah.
is decent. Most of it, not for me.
Yeah.
So when there is a good Western RPG, I scream about it. And I'm gonna shout out to the developer is Larian Studios, and they just recently released the early access version of Baldur's Gate 3.
Okay. Yep. I've been hearing
But
about that.
the reason why I love that, yeah, and I'm going to talk about them because I actually ended up getting that. In 2017 on PC, they released Divinity Original Sin 2, which is basically, I don't know what you'd say, like developmentally wise, the prequel to Baldur's Gate. Like there's a lot less like character, motion capture or like interactive moments. But Divinity Original Sin 2 is one of the best RPGs I have ever played, and for sure one of my top 10 games of the last 10 years.
Really?
Like
Wow.
easily. And it's because the characters, to me, I guess for me, the characters actually feel alive, funny. I can interact with them at any point. I can, most of the time when I see an RPG, I feel like there's an illusion that I can do anything. And the sacrifice of that is that the narrative feels weak.
Yeah.
Because you can't give 100 different options for impactful moments. That doesn't make sense design wise. But Divinity somehow just gets around that. I feel like I was honestly able to sit down, like I would be fighting, and then I could sit down at a bar, heal up, look at one of my companions and ask him about his life. And the acting was just good enough. And I love them. I just absolutely love these characters. And
Okay.
I just think that if you ever have any point, I think the game is available even on Switch now.
Yeah.
So worth it, Divinity Original
It's like
Sin.
$20. The $20 on Amazon.
Yeah, yeah, $20. And then the kicker is the whole game can be 4-player multiplayer.
Nice.
So you can play with your friends, like who wouldn't want that for $20? And then the game could be brutal difficult. Like if you want to be like, punch down and strategize for real, it's great. And there's so many different skills. Like I had like 2 main skills. One was like I was a shapeshifter. That's what it was. And I could like grow wings and it allowed me to like jump and glide across the level. But if I touched people, I could like use alchemy to transform them into things. Like you could change them into chickens or change them into zombies. But they just leave it so open to development. But yes, so the early access version of Baldur's Gate came out on the 30th of September.
Okay.
I just absolutely just got it. So it's on Steam. And just take Divinity Original Sin 2, add the rabid fan base of, Baldur's Gate. I've never played Baldur's Gate. But fan base is huge. And this just feels like a true, I don't know. It felt like they were really respecting the world because they have like all these monsters that are already established. You'll see that they're terrorizing people in various ways in the opening acts. But now you have character animations and interaction that is like Mass Effect. But to your point, Kanji, the game is turn-based, so I guess you gotta feel it out. But the strategic pieces to it, I hope that Baldur's Gate 3 is as good as Divinity Original Sin because I obviously haven't played Baldur's Gate much, but so far I love it.
And you just jumped into the third one without playing any of the other 2?
That's right. Yeah, I just blind jumped in the third one.
Okay.
I hope that doesn't hurt me.
So I talked quite a bit at the beginning, but I want to make sure. Jordan, did you have any questions you wanted to ask Kofi while he's here?
I think not. I can't think of anything, but I do want to ask. So I know you talked about Persona 5 Royal. Did you play Scramble? Now I haven't played it, but I've been like sitting on it because it's like I was thinking about streaming it, but I don't know how. Like, have you played it?
Yes, I actually I've been trying to be good and finishing these games before they come out in the US. I haven't done very well because really quick, I won't answer your question. I was supposed to finish a review of Yakuza 7 before the English release. Now I've got less than a month, so I don't know if it's going to happen. But yes, I bought Scramble. I haven't played a ton. I basically beat the entire first dungeon,
Okay.
And to be honest, I'm kind of impressed with it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of impressed with it. Like, it being a true sequel to Persona and
Mhm.
being a Koei Tecmo,
Yeah.
you know,
Musou
hack and
game.
slash game. Yeah, Musou game. I was like,
Yeah, Musou. Mhm.
but the attention to detail in the world felt
Yeah.
like a new dungeon, and
Yeah.
the fight mechanics can be kind of tough. That final boss, I mean, I was kind of rushing, but the final boss was, I'm not final boss. The boss of this first dungeon was kicking me down.
Yeah.
But it kind of takes out, like, it. Let's say you wanted a Persona game that's action based. This is
Mhm.
this is a great marriage between the two. You don't feel
Yeah.
like you're just mashing X. There's a lot of verticality to exploration, so you don't feel like you're just running down halls like Persona 4 Golden.
Yeah.
I love the fact that I could, like, shoot out a wire, which, you know, was obviously in Royal, but shoot out a wire and climb up and look around. And then, like, the character interactions feel so nostalgic. Like, as soon as I saw Mona again, I was like, "That's Mona. That's really
Yeah.
her, him. I don't remember. All I remember is that's Chopper's voice actor from One Piece.
Right. Yeah.
Love Chopper. So to me, I recommend it as a buy, especially if you see it on sale.
Yeah. Yeah, I played the demo and I loved it. I was like, "Whoa, this is not what I was expecting at all." But I didn't know I even wanted this because I was not happy when it first was released, only because I was assuming, following the hype and everyone was like, "Oh, it's gonna come out. Persona's gonna be on the Switch," and I'm like, "Oh, that's kind of
Right.
cool." And like, it didn't happen, and I was like, oh, "Okay."
It got hyped up as something else, and then you see exactly like a Musou game, like Dynasty Warrior style, and. I'm sorry, but like maybe is there something I'm missing with the new Breath of the Wild game that's coming out? That's like the Musou style one, Calamity something. You know,
Calamity. Oh yeah, that's gonna be good too. I think that'll be.
Yeah.
So will it? Because that's what I'm concerned with. Is like I didn't play the last Legend of Zelda one that was the Musou style game. Like Breath of the Wild, insanely good, but is. What's to make people think this one's actually going to be good?
That's a really good question because I feel like Zelda games don't have heavy character narratives.
Yeah.
With the silent protagonist, but obviously, like, Persona is an exception to that too. But
yeah.
So I did some video posts of gameplay and highlights from, what was it, TGS? I think it was TGS. The presentation, the action, and all the animations all look on par to me. Like, it looks like Koei Tecmo, they're doing it again. That's going to be amazing. I have no idea what the story's going to be, and I think it's going to hang on that. If the story's someone, you know what I did like though, that they introduced like 4 or 5 new characters I'd never seen before, and they all did seem to have their own stories. So I'll give them credit for that.
Gotcha.
I would say if you're skeptical, you might end up liking it.
Yeah,
you might end up liking it.
Yeah, I think it'll be good because I've played Hyrule Warriors. Hyrule Warriors was great. I like Cody said, the story is what'll really be interesting. And then with it being a prequel, it's like set 100 years before the Breath of the Wild.
Okay,
and I think it's cool because it's like this is the first time I think we've seen something like this from Nintendo, and I'm like, oh, okay, like this would be pretty dope. But my gripe is my worry is my biggest gripe with the Hyrule Warriors was that playing multiplayer like with friends was like almost a no-go. You had to play it like we had to be in the same room. So it came out on the Wii U, we had to be in the same room. And so if I got it, my friend got it first and then I got it, and I'm like, oh, you can play on my account. And it was like I had to bring my Wii over there and set it up. And so like I'm really hoping Nintendo figures out this online, but that may be asking for too much.
Yeah, Nintendo and online, those are never two words. Those two words in the same sentence have never meant good things.
Yeah.
So speaking of Breath of the Wild spin-offs, is this Genshin Impact on your guys' radars?
I have it downloaded, but I haven't played it.
You're further along than me. Go, what were you gonna say, Kofi?
No, I'm actually the same boat. I have played it. I think I've ranked up twice.
Okay.
And I haven't unlocked any characters, so most of the people on my timeline are miles ahead of me already.
Yeah.
But the gameplay was pretty good.
It looks really good. Like I'm so tempted, but again, when your backlog is stuck in 2012, it's like Can I do this? I don't know. It's free to play, right? And that's how I know they'll get me, is that I know I've heard only good things about the free to play mechanics in it so far, but I know as soon as I turn on that game, things will change.
Yeah, it's so sharp seeing like people were comparing paid games to what Genshin Impact provides,
Right.
and sorry, Genshin's been better.
I've only heard that it's better than Breath of the Wild multiple times from multiple sources, and that's pretty shocking considering how good of a game Breath of the Wild is.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So wrapping this up, then, Creative Kofi, where can people find you online, man?
So the easy way to access anything I do is on Twitter at creative_Kofi. I'm trying really hard to be consistent with translating a Mitsu Guide magazine updates, which come every Wednesday, like 11 Eastern. And I'll typically grab like the top 4 articles and just give you a quick sliver of what they might be talking about. So that's typically my main spiel. But you can also find me, Mondays at 7, Mondays at 7, possibly Thursdays at 7 or 8. So might be changing. And Saturdays at I don't really know yet, 8, all Eastern Standard Time for podcasting. So for sure, please
Where
stop
can
by.
we find links to your actually, you know what? Send me some links to your podcast afterwards, and I'll put them in the show notes, and people can find all those podcasts there. Does that sound
Awesome.
good? Okay.
Working on that right now.
Awesome.
Let me do that.
Awesome. And then Jordan, what about you? Where can people find you online?
On Twitter, Bearded Super Saiyan, Bearded SSJ. Yep, that's pretty much.
All right, and I am, as you can see right below, if you're watching this, at KanjiEater, at KanjiEater everywhere. So in closing, my question for our guests, what's one piece of advice you'd give someone on the path to learning something new? So obviously you've spent a lot of time learning Japanese. You're actually using it for some really cool stuff. But you've also, as you mentioned, done software. So what's one piece of advice you'd give to people on the path to learning a new skill?
I'm going to take it straight from, I know you guys have listened to him, Steve Kaufman. If you're not having fun, you're not going to survive. There has to be some sort of incentive or reward constantly in your mass immersion, because in my experience, I was banging my head on the wall a lot, especially in the first 3 years. So getting things like, anybody who comes to me, I usually give them like a quote unquote welcome package that includes one game, and then I'll try to encourage them to go elsewhere. And that game is Japanese Word Dungeon, or J-Word. Very simple stuff, right? What is it? Multiple choice, and like you have a little RPG character that kills the enemy when you choose the right character, the right emoji or whatever. You have to be having fun, and if it's anime or whatever it might be, please stick with that.
All right, awesome, man. Thanks so much for sharing that. Again, it was an absolute pleasure having you on, so please come back sometime. All right.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Signing off then. Good night, Twitch. Thank you very much.